Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video we're going to discuss the response that I received from Jason. He did respond. He sent me an email. I just want to warn everybody that there's some swearing involved. I will read it word for word. I'm going to call it out as we see it, and we're going to go through this together. I actually moved it over to Microsoft Word because it's much easier for me to break up and actually put in some questions I have so we can all go over it. And I'm basically bringing this stuff up to you guys because, again, I'm a business owner. And as we go through this, I think you're going to see that depending upon what we're talking about, in my case, as a business owner, you're talking about a product of mine. So, again, it is a personal issue if you're saying somebody is selling something that's inferior. Many of you have been duped before, so to speak, and we know how this industry is. I've covered it in many previous videos. So let's start the video off. We'll start from the top, go from the bottom, and of course we'll cover everything in detail, and at the end I really want to give everybody room for thought. So he starts off, let me first start off with an apology. I may have came off as a dick and I'm sorry. Not trying to have any beef with anyone as I'm too old for that shit. Well, I'm 44 and I think I'm older than you, truth be told. You said Chad is a good guy and I by no means any sort of close friend of his. Now that's interesting you said that, because in all fairness, the comment you left, I would have assumed your brothers or something, almost as if it was your cable. I didn't know what to believe, truth be told. I'm just being honest. I once had a Shapico XXL and was very active in that group, and people were very impressed by my advanced VFD and spindle installation on my machine, which is why Chad was referred to me. And this is interesting. I highlighted this. She wrote, Chad and I had almost a 2-hour video call helping him get some issues he was having with his installation fixed, which was prior to him buying your spindle cable. Okay, so let's think about that, guys. He had a 2-hour video call with this guy. So we already know that from my previous video I brought up and I predicted that this individual did not know what he was doing. He was not competent in this field, which is okay. It's fine. But you need to vocalize that. And you also need to be careful when you're looking for help. And I'm going to define that. You wrote here, it was a control issue with a loose wire connection that was causing his issues as everything was wired correctly. And I wrote again, this reflects, as I predicted in a prior video, that Chad was lacking troubleshooting technique and missing the persistence required to diagnose his own robot. We as vendors, the good ones, the ones that try to do it right, and I say try because, you know, we are human, we make mistakes, but realistically, you guys own your robots. We're not there with you. If we sell you components, our job is to support the component. If you ask for a wiring diagram, we should have that. We should provide warranty support. If we're selling something with a warranty, that should be the way it is. Are we supposed to be setting up your robots for you without being compensated? No, ma'am or sir. That will not happen. That's just the way it is. Okay? It is a business for us, and we need to be compensated as such. And this is why I bring up find the proper support. Now, as we come down here again, he writes, also prior to him purchasing your cable, I had another chat with him due to him getting a fault on the VFD for a short, if I remember correctly. It was several months ago, so I can't remember 100% what the issue was. I had him go over his spindle cable connections, not your cable, both at the VFD and spindle, and lo and behold, it was what I assumed it would be, was a loose wire. So let's get this straight. This guy had a 2-hour video call with this guy. First incidents, he found a loose connection. Okay, we already got a symbol that this guy really is not competent to be messing with this kind of machinery. Then he comes down again. This is now the second time you're helping an individual without proper knowledge of troubleshooting to diagnose finding a simple loose connection. At this point, did you review the entire system and make sure he wasn't the variable anymore as prior instances reflect? That is what I feel an experienced person in robotics would do. Because if we're seeing more or less a trend here with a pattern, okay, troubleshooting is diagnosing patterns. In engineering, that's what it is, Jason. So if you can't diagnose a pattern because your experience is lacking, if you didn't, then you actually are helping him create the problem through your own lack of knowledge. And I wrote that right here, and that's exactly what you did. And whether or not you admit to it or don't admit to it, That's what you did. This is when I discuss, and I've discussed this in previous videos, about people on forums, and once again, you meant to do the right thing, and I applaud that. I think everyone applauds that. But there comes a point where we have to, as individuals, say, you know what, if my AC stops working, I'm not going to go outside and try to diagnose a heat pump because I've watched a YouTube video. I might understand the YouTube video to what I've just digested in it to a point, but am I going to have years of experience messing with that? I'm not. I'm not, and that's being real. What we're discussing here is really based upon a DIY mentality. And the DIY mentality has to have a line drawn somewhere. There comes a point where you can say, you know what, I'm okay at working on certain things and I'm not okay working on others. When this guy is having a direct problem after problem correlated again to the same thing with these loose wires, that should have told you immediately, look, we need to go over this whole system because apparently you're not doing what you need to do if you truly wanted to help him. Or, because I really believe you did, but I really think that you didn't because of lack of experience. And I'm just telling you the way it is. And I think everyone out there is going to agree with that. Then you wrote, all was fine at this point. But he kept experiencing EMI issues, which is why he decided to go with your cable, but later found out after installing your cable that it was from a dust collection, from his dust collection causing static interference issues. Unfortunately, after resolving the static issue, I believe is when your cable failed. That's what you wrote. This is probably the most interesting part of this email, and probably the most angered, or I should say it makes me the most angry. And I think most of my business owners out there, everybody, I don't even think it's just business owners, but we have a little different feel, especially when we release products and we're trying to do it right. This really is the most irritating. He wrote, I don't know 100% of all the details of his installation. I hadn't seen the picture he sent you of your cable in his drag chain. I can tell you that the chain used is not what the Shapico comes with as standard. Those who have upgraded to a VFD and spindle have been buying the larger width cable chains to accommodate the spindle cables, waterline, stepper motor cables, and limit switch wires. So let's look at this. And really look at this, because this is disturbing. You claim my cable was improper for his application, yet you never even seen how he had the cable chain set up after having a 2-hour video call? Now that is completely irrational and illogical. I mean, something here is amiss. You're diagnosing someone's system about a cable, but you never even took the time to review how it was installed. Nor did you even see what he sent me, so it tells us that you're missing information. How could you pass judgment on anything, sir? That's disturbing. Very disturbing. You also kept saying that you've seen so many times people just putting their trim router power cord through their cable chains. These cables are generally expensive, yet not shielded. Let me make sure. Just hold on one second, guys. I want to make sure I'm going here in proper order. I'm sorry, I'm not. Let me start at the top here. How does this reflect you're able to diagnose someone else's system, let alone discuss what components are designed for this application or not? And that was another good question after explaining that, because I'm still in shock that after a 2-hour video call and after what you wrote, you didn't even know how the cable was used. I mean, it really is disturbing. You posted a message on my channel acting and projecting you were an authority, and you never even seen how the cable was installed in the system it failed on. Does that sound logical, Jason? I'm asking you as an individual. Does that sound logical? That's like me going to your 9 to 5 and telling your boss you look like you're on drugs, but I never seen you. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. He looks like he does drugs, but I never seen him. I think there's a disconnect when you mess with someone's business, and I think that's the key here. I know you apologize, and I do respect you as a human for doing that. I think it takes a big man to do that. But I think you disconnect the fact of what we're dealing with here as we go through this, the severity of what we're talking about. Now, having said all that, I will tell you my opinion on this situation you wrote. In your recent videos, you read to everyone these articles about cable chains and minimum bend radius. You also keep stressing about friction being the #1 cause of cable failure, and I'd have to disagree. Okay. And once again, I didn't post anything here. I didn't put anything in here. You say you disagree. On what behalf, Jason? What robots have you built? What robots have you serviced? That's the question I put there. Because I can tell you from what we've seen already, I don't feel you've done any other than your own. And I can also say that you wouldn't buy another CNC just knowing what you do, because I know right now that as an HVAC guy and dealing in Florida, you're a busy guy. You're making a lot of money because Florida right now is hot as hell, and we know you're constantly busy. So I look at it this way. You got a lot of money. You could have easily bought a CNC. You bought a Onefinity because it's within your budget. That's cool. But realistically, I think you would have built your own had you known. I really do. I think you would have built your own system if you really knew what you were doing. And I think many guys would agree with me on that. So when you wrote here, yes, friction is bad in almost all cases, whether it be cables or not, where friction is key in other aspects of machines to keep tight tolerances between two moving components to maintain their part accuracies of positive, negative, 1/1000th of an inch or less. Also, whenever the documentation you were reading kept talking about using cable meant for these applications, like continuous flexing cable, you always kept disagreeing with that statement. But why? Well, let's discuss it. It's apparent you don't understand what I explained in the previous video. I don't feel, as the written article reflected, that the reason most cables fail is due to them not being rated for continuous flex type. And when I say that, I'm specifying that with our robotics. Okay? Our robotics are CNC routers typically. We're dealing more with possibly 4-axis, some 5-axis. 5-axis is a whole different ballgame when we start dealing with rotational aspects on cable. This is assessed, once again, from real-world engineering experiences. In our robots, typical cable failures occur due to either an overloaded cable chain, or excess friction from lack of end-user experience. Now, you can totally disagree with me on that, and I respect it. But I'm telling you right now, I'll call it out for what it is. I know, and I think everyone out there knows, I have more experience than you do. I can just tell you that. You work your 9 to 5, and then you go home. I work probably about 16 hours a day. And you know why I work 16 hours a day? Because many business owners will tell you, when you own your business, you don't sleep. I live this business. And remember the other variable. Everything I do is online. I don't meet my clients. They find me usually. And that means that I have to be a step above. If I'm not a step above, then I lose. See, you can go into work late, and the worst your boss can do is let you go. Me, I lose everything. I have more at stake in that capacity. That's why I either win big or I go home. And any business owner will tell you that. Whether you're small or whether you're big, it's a fact. So keep that in mind as we go through this, guys, what we're really talking about here with a comment like he made. And as I broke this down, if you want more real-world experience, consider the obvious which you overlooked before. Chad's cable chain has other cables in it that aren't rated for continuous flex, and they didn't fail. So let's look at this for a minute, okay? Let's look. Right here, we can see that there's other cables in here, and these are not continuous flex. I can tell you definitively they are not continuous flex. Are we to believe that the hoses that he's using are continuous flex? We would be foolish to say that, no? So, Jason, I think it's a true assessment that all of this crap he has coming out of here is not continuous flex cable. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to go out even farther on a limb, okay? Chad's cable chain has other cables that aren't rated for continuous flex, and they didn't fail. Why is this? Why is this? How is it possible that a heavy-duty cable, a cable that's designed for the application at hand because it's dealing with 3-phase power out, okay, that's that we didn't really discuss, but just so you're aware, those VFDs that we're talking about have 3-phase power out. I'm sure you realize that. How is it possible that these little cables that are not designed, they're not continuous flex, because this guy had a problem paying $200 for my cable, which is really what probably held him back, and that's truth be told. But he'll use those whatever cables he's using. He already told us earlier he wasn't using shielding on something to make his dust collector cause interference. Well, let's look at the facts here. The reason that is the smaller diameter cables that end users use in their chains feature a smaller MBR, also known as minimum bend radius, which means they won't corkscrew under pressure, as they can be confined in tighter spaces within the cable chain. A larger cable with increased surface area requires adequate spacing, which is amplified when using double shielding, but still required without it. Now, if you want to test me on this, sir, we could go over this any way you'd like. I can have some of my engineers contact you, and we can go over that. Because I'm telling you right now, the biggest problem I've seen so far in your email is that I got the apology, but you're still spewing incorrect information, and that is not right. That is what my channel is about. I try to keep it real with my people because, unfortunately, in this industry, there's a lot of opinion, but not a lot of fact. What I'm showing now is fact. You don't believe me in this, yet if we look in the industry, and we can look anywhere, and I've said this before, your Shapico has a wood router on it in its picture. You should know that. And the reason it has a wood router and it works is, yes, those cables are flexible, but by the same token, the actual capacity at which they're able to flex is not hindered by the fact that they're using smaller cables around it. As soon as we step up to an industrial rated spindle, we have to have the power cable to support that. And it must also integrate double shielding for safety in terms of EMI, lack of EMI penetration. If you don't do that, you're going to have problems. Now, once you do that because you want to do the right thing, then you have to worry about your MBR. Now, the next thing I want to point out, and this is where it gets really interesting. Chad was unaware, as you are, of MBR, which created the environment for the cable to fail. And how can I say that? Because you never brought it up. And I find that odd. You never brought it up. Did you understand about MBR? Because it seems odd to me you wouldn't bring it up. You never brought it up in your message. You never brought it up ever, that you have to worry about that. Do you think your continuous flex cable doesn't have an MBR? No. The other point that I think is more contradictory, what about all the other cables in your personal CNC cable chain? Are they all rated for continuous flex, sir? I don't believe they are. I don't believe they are. I think you're using the same cable that 99.9% of all other end users are using. You know why? It works. That's why. It works. So I think we need to get realistic on what realistic is. You can't, I would never argue with you about air conditioning because I wouldn't know where to go. You're really barking up the wrong tree here. You know, you said you dug all your information and you've done research. Sir, I don't see that. Not at all. I don't think anyone sees it. And keep in mind, regardless of the cable an end user selects, if they install it incorrectly, the unit will experience a much shorter lifespan at best, if not catastrophic failure. Ask an engineer if I'm wrong. Ask an engineer if I'm wrong, because I know I'm right. Then you wrote here, I held the cable up to my ear that Chad sent me, and when grabbing two ends of the cable and simulating the cable moving in a chain, I could hear squeaking inside the cable, which tells me those individual conductors are rubbing against each other or against the mylar foil. Once again, you're portraying yourself as an expert, and once again, we come back to the fact that you were dealing with a guy that could not identify twice, mind you, that he had a loose connection in his system. He needed you to identify it, okay? He needed you to identify it. Do you really think that this individual did not destroy his own cable? Is that what you're trying to tell me? You're telling me that the cable destroyed itself, but this individual who put it into service and actually assembled it into his own chassis actually felt that this was fine. He had nothing to do with this as a variable. Impossible, Jason. It's impossible. Now, as we come over here, this is where we even get, this is where I'm like baffled. I'm once again baffled. You throw me for a loop here. You also kept saying that you've so many times people just putting their trim router power cord through cable chains. Those cables are generally extremely flexible, yet not shielded. And I highlighted this, which you and I both know but we're only talking about 120 volts, 60 hertz US, and 220 volts, 50 hertz European frequencies, not really too high to cause any harsh EMI issues. Did I read that right, sir? Did I read that right? It's apparent, once again, you're not doing your research or looking at your own system, sir. Your own system. I don't believe you realize you contradict yourself through the shielded cable you're using on your own HY 110 volt 50 hertz VFD. Why would you use that cable if the voltage in hertz wouldn't cause it any harsh EMI issues? I have to ask you that question because you're blowing me away, man. I don't know if this is if you're serious or, you know, I mean, I once again, guys, everybody watching this is real. This is an unedited email, and I'm blown away. EMI, just so you know, is present on any electrical device. You don't believe me? Google it. All electronics for CNC and best practice should utilize double shielded cable if appropriate in terms of price, because a lot of people can't afford it. And proper grounding. And just so you know, because you brought up 220 volt, a 220 volt plasma cutting robot will easily generate through enough EMI to destabilize its controller. Well, how do I know that? About 65% of my business deals with it, sir. I can tell you that. Fact. And that's 220 volt. Why? Because plasma cutters pull an enormous amount of amps. Chassis are metal. They become essentially an antenna. And when that happens, you've got a plume of EMI, which I've stated in numerous videos, and you can read all my articles. If you're just starting your channel, I understand that. I've got over 200 videos, sir. And I'm just letting you know, if I'm wrong, so is Lincoln Electric engineers, so is Hypotherm. You can read all their extensive grounding procedure on it, and it'll bring you up to date. Then you say, listen, Vince. And this is interesting. Listen, Vince, I get that you sell a shit ton of cables to high-dollar companies for large industrial machines, which I can see your cable maybe being okay for. So it can be okay for a large industrial machine on a high-dollar company. But once again, we go back to what you wrote, and you wrote again that my cable was poor quality, it was garbage, this, that, and the other thing. It's got loose foil, loose shielding. We all seen it. Then you wrote here for especially if you had no failures, but those machines, I'm assuming, have all kinds of room to accommodate large cable chains, which are anchored at 2 points with natural large radius, whereas the hobby grade CNC routers are small and compact, and without doing the full cable chain bracket redesigns to achieve tighter bend radius, then your cable is almost destined to fail. Well, let me clarify something. I actually sell more cables to small business than to large corporations, actually a 70-30 split. Anyone wants to know that, my guys will tell you. I mean, eBay is mostly driven around small business. It's apparent, once again, you missed my point on why I posted my sales, as they provide definitive validation from the quantity sold, and the companies using them that the designed application is as I stated, and the quality is fine. So much so that Ed Ferrari contacted me for a quote to supply the company manufacturing the actual CNC you use in your videos cables. That's pretty amazing, dude. I have to say, if I was thinking about that, I mean, that's scary to think that, you know, I mean, I know you apologize, but think about that for a minute. You totally missed that whole point. This completely proves your message, again, is completely false and slanderous, and it does. It absolutely does. You've missed the point. You're saying that Boeing and everybody else, all the 700 plus people that bought the cable, they're all using it on corporate machines and not smaller machines. So you know, because again, you're missing information, but I'll enlighten you. The Boeing cable is used on a smaller prototype that we're working with. Okay? Ed Ferrari, he's building the Onefinity CNC. So how would that be a larger company as far as a larger full-scale machine? I mean, it doesn't make sense, and I know you see where I'm going. You basically then cover some questions. Let's see. Oh, yeah, you gave me just my observations you discussed here. Just because my full-time job for the last 16 years has been a commercial HVAC service technician doesn't mean I don't have knowledge in other things. I certainly never said that. And it's interesting you point that out, because what I find interesting is you commented to me. I didn't come to you. You left the comment on my channel. You came to me after not buying anything and left that derogatory comment. I'm still baffled by it. Anyways, I'm actually very mechanically inclined to research everything I want to know about. Really? Really? Okay. Well, your Google must be different than mine, because you can Google everything I've just discussed and it's fact. You are as well a very smart man, and what you do, there's no doubt about that. I certainly didn't feel that from the message you left. I think most people would inquire the same. So interesting story, kind of off topic, but somewhat relevant to the wire you use. Being what I do for a living, I had a situation happen at a new construction job. The company I previously worked at was finishing up in Clearwater gas facility for the city of Clearwater. We had 3 Mitsubishi mini splits that were installed. The electricians ran 10 gauge, okay. Fan coils, 4 conductors, 1 ground, 2 line voltage, 1 signal wire, all in a single conduit, which is how it's designed to be done. Well, 1 out of the 3 began having communication issues because actually they, okay, S1, S2, S3, S1 being essentially L1, S2 being okay. Well, S2 also is part of communication, so strange, I know, but this is how it works per Mitsubishi, okay. Okay. Went back and forth on this many times. I tried explaining to them we need to, okay. It says here the way into the building and to the respecting fan coil. Lo and behold, the unit came up and ran with 0 issues. By doing this, I proved my point that not only was there some kind of EMI issue underground after they pulled new wire twice to try to resolve the issue, but also I used the proper gauge wire Mitsubishi suggests. Long story short, the electricians had to run cable very similar to yours, which is essentially tray cable. Okay, once again, I don't know if you're assuming that mine is tray cable. I don't know what you're assuming there. Maybe you're just making a reference to it. With 4 conductors and shielded to mitigate the communication issue. Just wanted to share that because I know you think I don't know what I'm doing based on my video you critiqued on the Onefinity VFD and spindle. Then you went on to explain about my video. It was not a how-to on video. Well, let me explain that right there. I didn't actually define you as not knowing what you're doing. You did. You posted the video. And I think there's a disconnect with reality in the sense that when people post videos of tutorials, if you know what you're doing and you post a video, you're going to help a bunch of people. If you know how to get connections and you post a video, but it's not done in best practice, you leave safety at risk, and you also could hurt someone in terms of how we're doing things with the cables we're working with. Well, like the cable you were working with, the way you had it connected, that was incorrect, sir. And I know you're saying, well, it's just for video purposes. I'm just to demonstrate here. First of all, you left a discretionary notice to say that you're not responsible. I like that. I think that was cool. The difference is that when you say that and you then post that, most people are not going to read that part of the comment. They're not going to read that video description. And what happens is you post that, and then people go, oh, I can do it this way. I've seen him do it. How do I know? Because I'm the vendor. I'm the vendor. I'm the guy that they come to and go, hey, I watched this video. This is what this guy did. And then they either short, I've had guys burn down their building, and you're free of charge. You're the guy out there just posting a video. I was just doing it. It's too bad they didn't figure that out. You know, it is what it is. I'm just telling you facts. If you don't believe me on this, contact another vendor. Who am I? Piss on me. I'm just telling you facts. I'm telling you right now that when you post a video, make sure you're doing best practices, because with electrical, especially with 3-phase, and you actually pointed that out in your video. You said, matter of fact, you said, what was it? Beginners should not be doing this, or something with beginners in it. And yet, the way you had that actual cable set up, it kind of defined you like a beginner. And I'm just telling you the truth. I'm telling you what everyone thinks, everyone knows. So I'm a little confused with that. I'm a little confused with that, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page as to what I'm doing. I'm not the one saying you don't know what you're doing. You posted a video that reflected that you could definitely come into question. It has nothing to do with me. Now, I have some questions, because after reading this, and once again, we're back to this whole thing where, again, you said here I was leaving disconnected. You basically explained, I want to read everything. I'll be fair about my video. It was not a how-to video on installing cable and how to prep the cable. If you wanted the video in its entirety, you'll see everything is installed on the board. On the main objective of the video is how to set it up for communication with the Onefinity controller, because some people had some confusion on setting it up, and I respect that. It was also a video on the HY inverter is preferred because it's proven to work flawlessly with the Onefinity control and communication over the RS-45, also the ground wire. I was going to leave disconnected because it was merely a demonstration video on setting up the VFD to a Onefinity controller, which that would have been wrong right there. I mean, guys, I get asked that question constantly. What do I do with the ground? Does the ground get connected? So, again, if you would have did that, it would have been wrong. What you posted was wrong. I'm just telling you. The reason I connected that ground the way I did was to show that if you connect all your grounds properly, of course, you will no longer need to use a magnet attached to the spindle collet when probing, or if the machine itself is grounded and the continuity is able to travel through the machine's entirety. The use of the for rules were just to make a clean, no frayed wire connection, just to make the video. Once again, we're back at that same point I'm making. For rules are meant to be used, ideally, best practice, in insertion type terminal blocks, not vertical pinch terminal blocks. Those are ring connectors. And I'm just saying that because guys come back and they're the ones that will not separate that Jason's just doing a video to highlight what he wants to show, not actually doing best practice. That's the truth. And I'm telling you the facts. Now I have some questions. Okay? Some questions for everyone watching this, especially my business owners. Do you feel Jason, or the likes of him, would have apologized had I not known his information? Now, I have to ask that question because what bothers me the most about this whole thing is that you posted a comment. You never bought anything from me. You never talked to me. You never, as far as I know, you're just somebody out there watching videos. And you immediately became judgmental. And you immediately became a know-it-all and portrayed yourself as a point of authority. And I think everyone would agree with that. But yet, when we look at that, and we look at everything we've just actually digested in the last 2 days of videos, because remember, I'm taking time out of my day to do these videos, and I'm doing them for a reason. You don't know who you're learning from. And number two, I look at this like I'm confused in terms of how someone potentially could hurt someone's business. We're in a time right now of dire straits. Now, I'm very thankful where I am because I'm blessed that my business, at least, is successful virtually all the time because I'm considered essential. But that being said, it still doesn't change the fact that what you said is derogatory and slanderous to products I sell when you have no qualification to say anything. And you've actually defined that here. So my question to my guys out there is, as a business owner, is an apology all that's required when making false claims that potentially affect someone's business? I mean, how does that sit with everybody? Jason, how would that sit with you if I called your employer and I said, Jason is druggy? How would that sit with you? How do you quantify that? You know, and then you wrote at the end of this email, I need to get my ass back to work, but feel free to apply when we can talk more. Wow, that's something. So your simple apology is okay, but it's okay you went and said and stated that you went and told people not to use my cable, acting as if you're a point of authority. Yet, like I said, this is baffling to me. You came up here and said you didn't even see the client install the cable in his system. I mean, I'm lost. I'm lost. Everything that we've looked at defines you as not a point of authority. So I accept your apology. Once again, I think it's a manly thing to do. I totally respect it, especially to do it in an email. I totally respect it. But I also feel that you really need to do some soul searching, man, because, I mean, to do something like that to where it would hurt someone's business, that would be no different than if I literally called or someone came and made a false regard on your well-being as character to your boss. Think about that. I mean, that's really, and especially now, the way things are, I'm really shocked. I'm really shocked. So I ask everybody. I don't ever ask anybody to comment. That's not something I do. I know that's part of YouTube, but I have to be honest. I want people's comments. I want to know what you feel. I want to know how you would take this. My business owners out there, my small business owners, a lot of my veterans and stuff, where we're looking at people that have integrity, people that are the highest integrity in the country, and we're looking at somebody who literally just for no, I don't know, I can't find a reason. And not only can I not find a reason, but looking at the information he provided in his own words, there's a lot of problems here. And I'm just lost. I'm really lost. I can't make heads or tails of it. I mean, what possesses somebody to post something on someone's channel? Number one, I have a lot of subscribers compared to you. So that's drawing a lot of attention to you. And I'm sure you know that. And again, this isn't high school. We're not in high school. We're not children. I look at this like, I would never say something derogatory to hurt someone that, hurt their potential well-being. I mean, you're messing with someone's livelihood. And that's a really disturbing thing. Like I said, there's some real disturbing things here. And I really just want everybody's opinion. Because I think now where we are with the economy and everything, I hope it changes. I really do. I never thought I'd become a victim of it, but this is really odd. Okay, guys, it's May 18th, 2021, and I had to interrupt the video and cut into it. I was actually going to release the response from Jason on May 10th, but I noticed something strange happened, and I'm going to cover that. You can see here on May 10th, I'm covering the email in the video that you guys are watching. And I got another YouTube comment, and this is what it wrote. And I highlighted only the information that really matters because he's just copying my link to the description of my cable. And this is super interesting. You can see here, this was sent Monday, May 10th, 12:10 p.m. It says here, I've sent you an email, which once again, this is the video that we're covering it in. But it dawned on me to check on something just now. I checked your store and looked at the item description for your pre-made cable. Maybe specify the minimum bend radius for your customers. That way you can back up your information or a screenshot of specs directly from the manufacturer of the cable. We only see what you, of course, he capitalizes what he wants to make pertinent, wrote about your cable. Just saying, please review the entire listing carefully. Okay. Please review the entire listing carefully. Okay. So this happened May 10th. Once again, and the reason I'm bringing that date up is a strange thing happened. On May 10th, you can see that a not as described PayPal claim was made by none other than Chad Bookman. Now, I removed Chad's shipping address, but once again, we can see what he wrote here. I purchased this cable from him with the expectation from the description and conversation that this was the one and only cable that I needed. I had the cable running for 2 months and then had a failure. I contacted the seller, and his only option for me to purchase was to purchase a new cable at 205. He claims that there is a bend radius that I should not exceed, but is not listed anywhere in the description of this item. The cable was tested by myself, and I love this. This is the best part. The cable was tested by myself and another person just to verify that it was not user error. And the interesting part is, who is the other person testing this? He's an HVAC technician with absolutely zero actual usage of robotics. He works with them at a hobby level. This guy works a 9 to 5 as HVAC. He signified it in the email that we're covering for 16 years. I don't know of any HVAC work that's using robotics on a daily basis, but it's funny, this guy Chad feels that he is competent and superior in actually working as a third party to investigate his cable failure. Says enough about this person's intelligence. That being said, it says here, I do not want another product from the seller, but I would like a refund for a defective cable. Well, here's the thing, Chad. Just so you know for future reference, you and Jason can both check on this because it sounds like you both need to do some more real serious research. If you are purchasing any component that you're going to integrate into your system, especially cables, cables are known as end-user consumables. There is no way a vendor can warranty any cable once it's been put into service by an end user because there are too many variables that exist based on end user competence that would actually determine the lifespan of the component. Now, I see guys claim that other cable manufacturers have warranties. Well, let me tell you the truth about that. They're going to go through and have you send that cable to them. They're going to have somebody analyze that cable. And if you believe that they could still be in business offering 3, 5, 6-year warranties on cables, I can tell you right now, it would be impossible for them to be doing direct component replacement based on simply an end user claiming that the cable failed. Okay? They have engineers on staff that are going to review the cable, actual engineers, Chad, not HVAC guys who play with robots on the weekend, actual engineers. And you're going to find that they will determine if they want to relinquish a refund for the cable or if they're going to relinquish replacing the cable. I would say probably 90 to 95% of the time they will not do that, especially the length of time that you've owned the cable. Okay, because they're going to ask the competent questions. They're going to say, how is that cable installed? How is it used? Show me pictures. And they're not going to go by what you claim. They're going to open up the cable and have you send it back to them, which is a prerequisite. And then they're going to review it carefully. And they're going to go over it with multiple guys looking at this before they actually issue a warranty claim. Now, how do I know this, Chad? Because I'm in the industry. And not only am I in the industry, but you can ask your friend Jason there because he claims he's, again, HVAC. I don't know how it crosses over into robotics, but he claims he understands automation. He can validate that. He can validate that, or you can contact Automation Direct or another vendor and find out. See if I'm wrong. See if I'm right. You think that they're just going to replace your unit because you had a failure. See, sir, the issue is that, once again, it's a lack of accountability on your part. I assume this has gone on for quite some time with your own personal well-being. But let me explain how this works. Be accountable. Be accountable to the fact that you've purchased a robot. Be accountable to the fact that it's up to you to master the robot and all aspects of it. That means the electrical side, the engineering side, the software side, the PC side, everything. Safety, all of it. You own it. You own it. If you want to test me on this, you let your house burn down because you've implemented what you consider to be best practice, or your buddy over there, HVAC guy, and you'll find out real quick. If the house burns down and they have a fire marshal come in, anyone wants to check on this, they'll tell you. And that's why my YouTube channel, most of my guys realize that they'll do the background checks themselves to see if I'm telling the truth. And they're going to find out with due diligence, it's fact. Okay, if they find anything that looks out of place, anything, in terms of what your competence is, or something that looks like it was wired or jerry-rigged or janky-wired, like our buddy said, if that happens, and they determine that it was your fault, because believe me, insurance companies hate paying money. You can validate that. Fact. Okay? If they validate that it was your fault, you own it. It's all on you. Your homeowners, not covering it. Your business insurance, not covering it. Whatever it is. And then you can send it to your friend, once again, Jason, and see if he'll cover it, because he's going to laugh at you. The guy didn't even want to admit that he was your friend. Pretty scary. As we come over here, though, what's really funny about this whole thing, we've decided the case in your favor. The case was decided in your favor. We're unable to determine whether the item was significantly different than originally described at time of purchase. And, of course, the main reason that is because, of course, you opened up an item not as described. But we all know the item was completely as described. And what really happened is you destroyed your own cable. That's the truth. PayPal can't validate that. What you were saying made no sense. I'm sure they were competent enough to review it, and that's exactly what they did. And once again, you buried yourself. So you and Jason have failed once again miserably yourself. So where I was going, guys, where I was going with this video, and especially to my business owners, because you guys, we put ourselves out there at risk in a little bit different way than the guy working the 9 to 5. Okay, the 9 to 5 guy puts himself at risk because he relies on us, the business owner, to keep him employed. But my question still stands. Isn't I'm sorry just good enough? Isn't I'm sorry good enough for this kind of behavior? This kind of non-adult behavior between two individuals who, one guy didn't buy the cable, another guy here bought the cable, refuses accountability. To him, he can use a cable indefinitely and never fail, regardless of how he installs it. He doesn't need to know anything. He just installs a cable and hopes for the best and lets it go from there. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's sad because there are a lot of good vendors out there who try to do things right, and I try to consider myself one of them, that I'll do my best to work with all of my clients, but when people do this kind of behavior, it's very, very disheartening that we are very vulnerable to just people with lack of integrity. I mean, I don't know what else to say. You have incompetence. You have one guy who defines incompetence, another guy who defines incompetence, and together, it's like I said, Stevie Wonder's teaching Ray Charles how to drive, and what's really frightening is neither of them have integrity. Because you're not telling me, like many of you already know, this message just came in on the same day that this guy decided on that same day to open up an item not as described claim. We as business owners understand it. We know how the payment processors like PayPal work. We understand all of the variables we work with as far as risk versus reward. And believe me, every time I sell something, I realize it's how well I can describe something. And Jason, just so you know, your little channel may have like, what, 8, 9 videos? I don't know what it has, to be truthful. I have over 200. And if you look at what I'm describing in my videos, I'm very, very, very descriptive about all of my electronics. I'm very descriptive about everything. And everyone knows who's dealt with me. They can contact me directly at any point, at any time, and I answer. I work on Sundays. I work on holidays. And that's the difference between owning the business. And now we, as business owners, see this kind of behavior. And again, this is what we deal with, trying to work with those and trying to enlighten those to make them successful. And it's like I said, it's very, very disturbing to think that you have people messing with our livelihood, especially in today's era where, like right now, we're dealing with a pandemic, you know? And I wonder if you would be as accepting if I was to come to your job and I would be going to your supervisor and just making claims. And I'd be like, well, who is this guy? Oh, he's, anybody. Anybody. I have no validation. I have no proof of anything, but I'll just talk. I'll just talk. How would you feel? That's the question you should ask yourself. And again, my business owners know exactly where I'm coming from. The guys out there doing startups, they should know where I'm coming from, because I'm telling you, you can win big, but this is what you're dealing with in today's online world of, again, whatever you're selling, be very careful, guys. And I'm, like I said, I believe in full transparency. I have nothing to hide. I'm showing you exactly what happened. And again, I'm going to do what I feel is right, and I'm also going to do what I feel is justified. So, Jason, you forgot to answer my question in your email. It was very long and very descriptive, and you were trying to cover a lot of different topics, some of which, of course, you don't know anything about. But let's see what you know about. Let's see if you're willing to take the challenge. Tell me what cable you'd like, a 10-foot length, and you do a video tutorial on you assembling that cable properly, using the proper components to make sure that the build is safe, and also that you're instituting proper grounding. You have to do soldering. You're going to have to use the same connector I did. We noticed in the video, or at least I noticed in the video, looks like you're using an aftermarket connector, because that tells me one of two things. Either you didn't want to build the cable, which is probably it, or you couldn't build the cable, which is also probably it. So it's one of the two. But I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. We'll say you can solder, and we say you can do this. Take me up on the challenge. You totally avoided the question. Totally avoided it in your email that everybody is seeing. And once again, this is where we're going. You can't hide. You can't hide from the fact you put yourself out there. You made yourself an authority figure once you posted videos claiming to know and dictate certain tutorials, and then you came and posted on my channel. And I would say this, judging from the fact I have over 200 videos on the same topic, I would say I know a little more than you. Just a teeny bit. I don't know, but I think so. And I say, if you know more than me, take me up on my challenge, because then everyone can see the truth. And that's the way it should be. I say this, if you're a better man in the sense that you have more knowledge, I'm going to learn something, so I want to see it. I'm open to it. I'm humble enough to say, I want to see what you know. You teach me something. It's interesting how it's just a meager apology and you went on to continue to spew garbage. A lot of what you said was still not true. And then this came out. Right after you sent the email, you did this. So what does that speak of your character? And you're not telling me it's coincidence. I don't think anybody believes that watching this. So let's see what happens. Let's see if you take me up on the challenge, and we'll see where we go from there. Because then everyone can see if, maybe Ed Ferrari will contact you about building his cables for his system. Because, again, if you have more knowledge and you feel you're competent and you feel you can handle it, I'd love to see what you've built and what you've sold. That would be the most impressive thing. But we'll start with just a cable that I supply. You supply the video and the time and the tutorial to cover it. That's what I'm saying. Address the video and we'll let it go from there. Okay? Guys, once again, I apologize for doing a video in this length, but this really needed to be done because this happens to a lot of small businesses as well as myself. And I feel that a lot of guys can relate to this. This is something that as you work with businesses, you will deal with this situation. And again, when you're vindicated, and that kind of goes with me, when you're vindicated, it needs to be seen. This is truth. This is real. And this is why you guys understand the business model you're in, whatever it may be, because there's always something or someone out there that is a variable and is willing to try to take what you've got. And again, that's exactly what happened here. We have somebody who I don't even know, one guy I don't even know, other guy purchased something, and for whatever reason, just decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to do this, or they're working together. Who knows? I don't know the story. I don't care to know the story. You won't know the story either, but this happens. And again, hopefully it shows what you're dealing with. I try to, once again, disclose everything. And Jason, just so you know, I did go in and update the listing. So you can rest assured that, but also rest assured that I would say 95, 96% of all my clients know and realize all cables have a minimum bend radius. On top of the fact, I would say that same percentage understands that once they install a cable in their machine, how could anyone warranty a length of time a cable could be used? That is absolutely ridiculous. And again, I'd say 95 to 98% understand that. For the 3% or 2% that don't, well, I think they have other variables to work with in robotics. That's what I personally believe. They would either ask or hopefully, like I said, take up a different genre of interest. So again, guys, to all of you listening to this, I really appreciate your time. I hope some of you learned stuff from this. I hope my business owners can relate to it because that was really why I wanted to disclose all this. I love my subscribers. Once again, if you do have questions or require quotes, message me direct at storm2313@gmail.com. Or you can message me through my eBay store. You'll have the links in the video description below. Thank you all for your time. Take care.